From the Oklahoma Newsroom, you're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. Barry, lots of college football to digest, and obviously those latest college football rankings, the Sooners stay put at number 3. Games to be played this weekend, but no OU opportunity out there to play and prove anything else. Can the Sooners move up if everybody ahead of them wins, or are they locked in almost at 3?
Well, I don't know about locked in at 3, but clearly it's going to be tough to move up without a loss by Alabama or Clemson. Jeff Long's comments, committee chairman, his comments on Tuesday night said, you know, we did a lot of debate between 1 and 2, a lot of debate between 4 and 5. Sooners seem pretty solid at 3. Without playing, going to be hard to move up. Alabama, Clemson, playing solid teams, not great teams. So, you know, maybe if there was some sort of struggle, you might enter into a debate, but it seems likely that the Sooners are going to be 3rd.
Yeah, I would think it would almost have to be somebody, like you say, having a struggle in that championship game. I don't foresee it with Alabama. I mean, they're playing Florida, who scored 2 points last week. I mean, I just don't think the Crimson Tide's going to have any problem against Florida. And then in that ACC game, I could see Clemson maybe having a closer game with North Carolina, but I just don't know with that undefeated, if Clemson goes ahead and beats North Carolina, even if it is a close game, you still got Clemson at 13-0. It'd be really hard for the committee to swap Alabama with Clemson, even if Clemson has a close game, which I think is a lot more likely than Alabama having a close game. But then I guess the question becomes, is there anything Iowa or Michigan State could do to hop the Sooners?
Well, I think it's possible. In fact, I thought Michigan State's resume is as good as the others. I mean, I think Michigan State has a resume to equal Oklahoma or Alabama. So, you know, I think it's possible. Now, they still have Michigan State below Iowa, so Michigan State is not seen as highly as by the committee right now. A victory over Iowa would definitely improve the Spartans. But it seems unlikely, considering what Jeff Long said, that the voting was not close between the Big Ten teams and Oklahoma. Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible. We've seen a Big Ten blowout before. Last year we saw 59-0. We saw Ohio State leapfrog the Big 12 teams. But
sure doesn't seem as likely.
Doesn't seem as likely. It doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, and I guess the question that becomes now is, okay, if we have our predictions of what's going to happen on Saturday with these championship games, what's the final ranking going to look like? Barry, I'm going to say it's going to be Clemson 1, Alabama 2, Oklahoma 3, and then I got Michigan State beating Iowa. So I'm going with those as my top 4. What's your 1 through 4 on Sunday morning?
Well, I think that's what it'll be. If you're gonna put Alabama number 1, this was the week to do it.
Yeah.
I don't see how the resumes change with Clemson and playing Carolina, Alabama playing Florida.
Florida is not nearly as good an opponent as North Carolina is on the resume.
Does not seem to be. So I don't see how Alabama can pass a Clemson. Maybe they will, but I don't see it. So I think what we're going to have, quite possibly, another boring committee show. I mean, we had one Tuesday night after all this drama week by week.
Nothing changed.
If Alabama and Clemson win, there's not going to be a lot of drama on Sunday morning.
No, I don't think so either. And if that happens, Clemson 1, Alabama 2, Clemson will be the one they protect first, and we assume go to Miami, and that leaves Alabama and Oklahoma and Arlington. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Let me tell you what, 100,000 people in Jerry World, because they'll sell all those standing room onlys.
Yeah, they'll be coming down from the roof, I think, to watch that one. Hey, you're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenny here with Barry. Still talking college football, and the focus has changed a little bit for some Sooner fans as Lincoln Riley's name pops up as a candidate at South Carolina. We don't yet know if there's been any formal talks, but South Carolina apparently interested at least in talking to Lincoln Riley. Let's say he gets the job at South Carolina, Barry. Should he stay on the Sooner staff throughout the playoff run, however long that is, or should he just go ahead and go to South Carolina?
Well, I think a coach should always stay. We always hear this talk of team chemistry and everybody on the same page and in it for the team. And then every December we see coaches leave their team and go take another job before the season's even over. And I think it's an abomination, and I don't think coaches ought to do it. A lot of them do. However, I don't think Lincoln Riley would do that. For one thing, when you're playing for a national championship, coaches tend to sober up and say, this is not only bad form, this is the opportunity of a lifetime.
Right.
So they do it for even selfish reasons, but also the new school enjoys it when you're in the spotlight.
Sure.
So South Carolina would love to have Lincoln Riley on television the night of the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
They'd show his picture.
And every time they showed him, the new South Carolina coach, yeah.
They'd show his picture 100 times.
Yeah.
I mean, and it'd be talk about South Carolina. So it's good marketing. I think even if Lincoln Riley left for another job,
yeah,
I think he would remain for that game.
Yeah, I think he would too. You know, Oklahoma's obviously had assistants take other jobs midstream, like you say, in December. And I think the thought process most of the time when they do leave is that there's so much to do. You've got to hire your staff. You've got to get on the recruiting trail. You've got to try to retain the recruits that are already committed to come to your new school. I mean, I get why they go, but it's a lot easier for an assistant to cut ties and move on when you're going to play in the Russell Athletic Bowl as opposed to the national semifinal against Alabama and Jerry World. I mean, those are two diametrically opposed opportunities out there. So Bob Stoops, I think, you know, in situations that he's had coaches leave and go, it's not been in a championship situation. When coaches have been moving, if they're playing in a championship, I think he would see it differently. I don't think he would hold it against Lincoln Riley for getting that job. He's never seemed to be that type of guy either.
No, I mean, and if Bob didn't think a guy's heart was in it, he wouldn't want him around anyway. Now, what you said about the coaches is right on the offensive side, but think back to '03. Mike Stoops, his brother, took the Arizona job, finished out the Big 12 title game, took the job before the Big 12 title game, coached that game. Sooners got rocked. Made the national title game anyway without Mike Stoops. Brent Venables took over. Oklahoma lost. The defense actually played fine the game, 14 offensive points by LSU. But so it's happened different ways.
Is it different with they were co-coordinators, those defensive coaches, Mike and Brent. I mean, without Lincoln Riley, there's no obvious play caller in this team, Barry.
It is different, not because it's offense and defense, but because of the makeup of this staff. You're right. Brent Venables, Bob Stoops himself's a defensive coordinator. So, I mean, there was plenty of intellectual property.
There's nobody standing on that sideline that can do what Lincoln Riley does.
Dennis Simmons came from Washington State, joined Lincoln Riley, the receivers coach. He's the closest you have to somebody that's deep-seated in this offense. So it would be troublesome if Lincoln Riley was not available for the bowl game.
Well, back in the day, you know, when Mike Leach was around and Mark Mangino was on staff, I think there was that pass game, run game thing. So you sort of had, while Mangino, I don't think, ascribed to the same type of offense that Leach wanted to run, he at least knew what was going on in a way that you could see that sort of handoff. But maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't get the sense like there's anybody that's sort of a right-hand assistant to the point with Lincoln Riley that they could do that seamlessly. I think it would be really, really hard. You know, maybe Cale Gundy's ready to take on that responsibility, but in the national semifinal for the first time?
It'd be very dicey. And if you think back to 2010, Dana Holgerson's 1 year in Stillwater, you know, Mike Gundy talked about, you know, the rest of us really don't know what's going on. I mean, this is a Dana production. You get a little bit of sense of that with Lincoln Riley, other than the fact that I think after the Texas game, Bob called him in and said, we're going to run the ball no matter what kind of offense you're running.
Well, that was a good call. Maybe Bob should do more offensive coordinating. Who knows? Hey, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny here with Barry. We've been talking college football, but the Thunder's going strong, and Barry, well, strong sometimes, not so strong other times. But maybe the most interesting thing that's happened this week has been Kobe Bryant saying he's retiring and Kevin Durant saying Kobe's been unfairly criticized. But then Kobe sort of said, I don't need anybody to stand up for me. This has been an interesting interplay among superstars.
It has been. Kevin Durant with a very interesting take on Kobe Bryant's retirement, saying basically that the media has treated Kobe Bryant disrespectfully, has said mean things about Bryant. The truth of the matter is, Kobe is a shell of his former self. He's playing terrible. He's shooting 30% from the field, 20% from three-point range. He's not past his prime. He's past his past prime. It's time to retire. He's a detriment to the Lakers. Kobe knows it. That's why he's stepping down.
Exactly.
But Kevin Durant, with this, he's got this, for the last couple of years, he's had sort of this jaded view of the media. And we're not talking about Oklahoma City media here because we don't care about Kobe Bryant or write about him. But nationally, people have said it's time for Kobe to move aside. Kevin Durant has resented that, but to Kobe Bryant's credit, he came out and said, "You know what? I really don't need anybody to take up for me." He said, "I accept the praise when it comes. I accept the criticism when it comes." Yeah. He says that's part of it. So, a very mature response from Kobe Bryant, which you'd expect from a 20-year pro.
Yeah.
I don't know if Durant and Westbrook will ever get to that point. They don't show a lot of signs of maturing in terms of their media
understanding.
They seem a little confused.
Yeah.
Maybe Kobe Bryant. Well, this is a teaching moment for Kevin Durant. Maybe Durant can learn something from Kobe this week.
Well, because what you said about Kobe is right. If Kobe was still Kobe, he wouldn't have decided to retire. I mean, he'd be saying, "I'll play, another year, 2, 3, however long that I'm able." But clearly, at this point, Kobe Bryant has seen the reality. He's been hurt so much in recent years. I think now that he's finally to full health and he's able to sort of be out there more consistently, to see with his own eyes, feel with his own body, I'm sure when he thinks, this is what I want to do, this is what I should do, and then when he realizes, I can't do that. That, I think, to me, that's the obvious, Barry. You mentioned his shooting percentage, but if he was out there and feeling great and his body was doing what his mind said he should do, I don't think he would have retired. But clearly Kobe Bryant gets it, and that's why he took this step. And I don't think it's anything more than that. I was a little surprised that Durant turned it again into a media thing. That just seems to be sort of a recurring theme with him a lot of times here recently.
Yeah, and you know what I think some of this is, and this is not just a Durant thing. A lot of superstars, they have sort of latched on to the segment of NBA fandom that is hero worship, and thinks that the game is about the individual stars. That's not the way I'm wired, and that's not the way a lot of fans are wired. A lot of fans are wired about the games and the teams and victory and defeat. In other words, Kobe Bryant may be great for the league on this farewell tour. He sucked the life out of the Lakers.
Yeah.
If you're a Laker fan, Kobe Bryant has been bad news for 2 years for your team. And this idea that you should respect a superstar, you should pay homage to a great of the game, when, if you're a Laker fan, he's killing the Lakers and they haven't started over. They're going to have to start over, and they just hadn't done it because of Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
To me, you get your eyes back on the team and the win-loss column. That's, to me, is the important thing. And this almost like a Hollywood star culture.
Yeah.
That's one thing about the movies. There's not winners and losers. In basketball, there's winners and losers. You go to the arena and hope your team wins.
Right.
And I think we've lost that with this hero worship.
And it's interesting, too, because the Lakers aren't on TV, so I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of Lakers games, but from some of the stuff I've read and heard, it sounds like Kobe may, now that he's come to the realization of where his game is and where his skills are, I've heard some talk that he's maybe started to be a little bit more mentoring, because he was, talk about alpha male. He was the guy that barked at guys. There was no constructive criticism at all. But maybe we're going to see that sort of emerge with Kobe. But another thing, Barry, you talk about sort of what maybe motivates these guys to see the media as bad or whatever. And granted, there are definitely some times when people in the media step out of bounds, so I'm not standing up for everybody. But it sort of reminds me of, I hate to get back into college football, but Bob Stoops wins the Big 12 championship last Saturday night and suddenly becomes critical of the media, asking, is this a great thing? It almost feels like sometimes people that are at great heights need somebody to be the bad guy. And sometimes the media, they have to build up the media to be the bad guy so they can think, all right, now I got to go. I got to prove this. I almost felt that way when I heard what Bob Stoops had said, and it sort of rings again in my head when I think about what Kevin Durant said. You got to have somebody to say, I'm against these guys.
Well, I think it's clear that Durant and Westbrook have sort of created enemies, and the media, which is one thing in their mind. It's not the Oklahoma City media. It's not the national. It's just anybody that's outside the Thunder.
If you're not drawing a paycheck from the Thunder, you're outside that.
You're the enemy. Yeah. So I think that's definitely true, and it's noticeably different than it was 2 and 3 years ago.
For sure. Thunder back on the court Thursday night in Miami. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.